everyone, welcome back. This video is part of a collaboration started by Heather from A Catholic Mom's Life. A bunch of Catholic YouTubers have been going through the book, The Handbook for Catholic Moms by Lisa Hendy, and each week there is a new topic. So make sure you check out the other ladies' channels in the description box below. This chapter is all about the Mass, and while I think that the author covered so many awesome topics, I am going to give you some tips today on why and how to take your little children with you when you go to Mass on Sunday. My belief is that Mass is a place that's inclusive for everyone, so why would we discourage families with children to come to Mass just because it can be distracting for other people? Now, some churches have crying rooms where basically they're an area where the rest of the congregation can't hear what's going on, and so kids are free to roam around and be loud and crazy, and it doesn't bother anybody. But in some churches, and my parish included, there isn't a separated crying room. We do have a gathering space where you can see into the church, and it's closed off, so you can take kids out there, which is great. And usually a parish will have something like that, but some parishes that we've been to don't, and it can provide a bit of a challenge. Now, my son is only 1 year old, and we've gone to Mass every week that he's been alive and some extra additional times. So I do have some tips for what I've experienced now, just with having a baby who is an infant, up until now having a toddler who is starting to run around and get a little bit more noisy than he used to. But generally things go pretty well at Mass for us if we follow these steps. So I'd like to share them with you today in hopes that this will help you have a more smooth time at Mass with your little ones. So my first tip, that sounds crazy, but my husband started doing this right away when my son was born, is we went to the earliest Mass that my parish offered. And typically we would go to the latest Mass offered, but he would encourage us, my husband would encourage us to get up early and go at the 7 a.m. Mass while my son was still sleeping. And though it's not that fun to wake up super early on Sundays, every single time we'd go to Mass, he'd be sleeping through the entire thing, and it was awesome. And then I noticed behavioral changes in my 8-year-old because she was still so tired early in the morning. She would be a lot more calm at Mass. Not that she was ever wild or rambunctious, but the earlier time made her a little more calm. And so then over time, I noticed when we do go to the super early Mass, everybody's a lot more quiet and serene because they're still kind of waking up. So it's a great time to take the kids. Despite the fact you have to get up early, you can always come home and take a nap later. Now, I know it's nice to instill good habits in our children, especially if we're practicing Catholics, but for the little ones, I think it's important to feed them before going to Mass, pretty much right before going to Mass, especially if you're nursing or they're bottle fed, because they'll generally fall asleep right after you nurse. So what I would do back when I was nursing my son is I would make sure the last thing we did before we went is I'd allot enough time for however long it was going to take me to nurse him, and then that way when we got to Mass, his tummy was full and he usually was tired. And now that he's older, we still make sure we feed him last thing before we go, because it just puts him in less of a state of wanting food or being a little bit irritable. So I think it's important to feed your little ones right before going to Mass. And similar to that, if you have a kid with a lot of bundled up energy like my son is starting to now, make sure they get outside and move around a little bit. Have them take a walk. Even, again, if it requires you to get up extra early, it's worth it to have that peace during Mass when they're less antsy and less in the mood of trying to get into things. Another thing I like to do, and I don't know how old I will continue this for, but at least while my son is pretty young and a little too young to really be able to follow what's going on at Mass, I like to bring a few toys to keep him entertained if he does get a bit fidgety. And one thing that I like to do is bring toys that are somewhat religious themed, just so he's aware, even if he doesn't really understand it, that he's in an environment where that's different than general playtime. So I'll show you a few of the things that are my go-to little objects to bring. I have this, My First Rosary. It's a teether here, and then little fabric rosary, and I love this. I think it's great. It's easy to stick in his diaper bag, and it's not too noisy, but it does have a rattle sound, but it's just a nice thing for him to chew on and play with, and it's a little rosary. I've seen the Choose Life Shop rosaries on Instagram and social media. I've seen some pictures. I love those. I think it's a great idea. I just haven't gotten one for my son, but I would love to get him one of those one day, because I think it's just a great thing to have your kid, even if it's just a chew toy, to have them recognize just these simple reminders of these devotionals that we have in our faith. Another toy that I love are the shining light dolls. I have a few of them. Well, my son does. And this is little St. Francis. We have St. Francis, St. Joseph, and Mary. And I'd love to get more of these too. And these are great because they're little saints. They're great reminders of what the saint is about. St. Francis of Assisi here, for instance, he has the little animals, and they're just, look at him, so cute. So I like that. And then in addition to those two items, I like to bring any kind of toy that is soft when you drop it. It's a little deer puppet or little toy that my uncle gave to my son, and it's great because he can drop it and nothing happens, nothing breaks, it doesn't make noise. So that is what's awesome about a few of these little small toys that you know are not going to cause commotion when you're at Mass. And finally, don't allow yourself to feel embarrassed if your child does make some noise. The thing is, you're there, you're at Mass, you're planting those seeds for your child. And I know some moms wonder if it's even worth going to Mass because they're chasing around their kid the whole time and they're not even able to listen to the homily or what's going on. But the importance is that you're there, and that in some way, even just the fact of your presence can be a witness to somebody who is going to Mass, or just that witness to your child. And it also gets them comfortable in the environment of the Mass setting. So as they grow and mature a little bit, it won't be this big foreign place to come to. They'll understand it a little bit more, and they will be relaxed by the sounds of Mass. I even noticed with my son, I think just since we've always gone, when we have special occasions like baptisms or first communions that we go to, he kind of gets it in a way. I mean, he kind of knows that we're sitting and we're not being too crazy. And so generally he's been very good whenever we've gone to events, but there are those days on Sunday Masses where he has that excess energy. But if we follow those steps and we make sure he's fed and wear him out a little bit before we go, or go to an early Mass, it seems to work out fantastically. So those are some tips. I would love to hear any additional tips that you have, especially for children as they get a little bit older, or when you have more than one. Pretty soon here, I am going to be having another baby, and so balancing the two will definitely be an adjustment, but I can't wait. It's such a huge blessing, and I really look forward to it. So I hope this video gave you some tips and ideas. If you try them, let me know how it works out for you. I know it's hard to wake up early on a Sunday morning, but it is amazing how well it helps your kids behave and just be in more of a calmer state of mind. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching.